We're back tonight with the Beards Creek podcast, and we have special guests, Ben and Nora Williams. And Ben, if you don't know Ben and you're living in Western New York, you're clearly living under a rock, because this is one of the busiest, most hustling. I don't know if that's even a term or not, but this guy hustles. He owned owns Old Tin Cup Habitat Consulting. He works for Whitetail Properties Real Estate. He sells 100 proof seed mix. He is a bourbon connoisseur, hosts the 100 proof Whitetails podcast, and just for kicks, he decided to become a new father as well. So Ben and Nora, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Mike. We appreciate it. And luckily, we're getting down to the end of our bottle, so we're actually a little bit less grumpy than when we first started talking a couple minutes ago. So, but yeah, no, it's when you put it all out there, it sounds like a lot, and it is. But I want to first thank my wife for being supportive and family and stuff like that. Like we were talking before we started going live, and without them, it wouldn't be possible to do all the stuff I do. And I picked a good one with my wife, I think, for sure, and that's why we, decided to have a little one and throw another wrinkle into the busy, the busy and crazy of everything. So, and my wife's real involved with. She works at Hobart William Smith, and then she works for our local town where we live now here in Phelps too. She works for the Business Development and Tourism Council. So,
wow,
we're big involved with the community and stuff like that in our local area, and yeah. And we're learning the parent thing best we can. So,
so if anybody who's listening to this follows Ben on Instagram, you see that he's very active in the community. I just saw you just posted about delivering food a couple days ago, and the parade, or I don't remember what it was that you were involved in, but you're hosting tables everywhere. I just don't, I before we went live, I was talking about seeing Nora at the NDA event. Well, it's no wonder you got to take her with you everywhere. You're going everywhere. She's got to go with you.
Yeah, she's got to go, and she's. This is about the worst that she is, believe it or not. She's a very good baby, and she sleeps really well, and she behaves most of the time. Now that she's getting a little bit older, maybe putting some teeth on and stuff like that, she's getting a little bit of an attitude with stuff, but
sure.
But no, we've been really lucky with her, and that's part of it too. Is we are moving a lot, but I think it's good for her to get out and socialize with folks, and she's with my mom 1 or 2 days a week usually. My sister usually a day a week. We kind of split it up so we can still do all the stuff that we have to do during the week. Me and my wife do, but most of the time, she ends up coming along with us because it's she's easy going with it and just rolls with it.
So cool. Will she make it into the deer woods this fall?
Well, I would think so. I mean, my parents brought me out. I've told the story with my dad a couple times on the show and different episodes and stuff like that. I was on the backpack when my dad recovered a deer, and I was born July. He harvested end of October, so that's 5 months. So she's got a couple extra for that. So she just missed out on the shed season this year, but she was at the Shed Fest event when she was like, I don't even know if she was 2 months when the Shed Fest event happened. So she's been with us at that. She's been with us to the archery shoot. She was with us today at the Woods and Wildlife Fest that we're doing a booth at for Whitetail Properties. And I got the pack and play there, and she's waving to all the folks and everything too along the way. So
that's fantastic.
And she's all smiles and stuff like that. So sees the dogs running around, loves animals, all that stuff already. So she's just a happy go with the flow baby. Like I said, now that she's got a bottle in her, she's in much better spirits than when we were chatting beforehand, for sure.
That's awesome. That's so it's you and I don't know each other real well. We bumped into each other at some NDA events and different things. And incidentally, when I saw you at the Aerofest, I was stunned that you even remembered my name, but that's beside the point. It's fun to see you knowing you before kids, and now to see you as a dad, it's
Yep.
just neat to see how it changes you, and how you work, how different people manage it, and yeah, you're doing well. You're doing it good.
Sometimes sometimes I feel like I am. Sometimes I feel like I'm not. When we were talking before this, I wish we had some of that recorded because she was all full of stuff to say. And
That's
but
parenting, man. That's just
oh yeah,
parenting. Yep.
no doubt, no doubt.
So, so
Yeah.
Ben, where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Wayne County in a town called Clyde, and that's where we were at the parade the other day in my hometown of Clyde. Did the fireman's parade there, and she was riding along in the parade and stuff like that. And Dad was in the front seat throwing candy because, again, that's the hometown. That's where he grew up. That's where I grew up, kind of thing. And went to school there, and then I grew up hunting, fishing, trapping. This is something probably not many people are going to be able to say anymore. But when I went to college, my not my tuition, but my laptop that I bought, my school books, the first year, I paid for all that with trapping money from high school. So,
Man,
I don't think many people are saying that kind of stuff anymore on, shows. And we were still getting decent prices for a lot of that stuff, even back when I was trapping in high school. That would have been like 2009, 10,
Yep.
8, 9, and 10.
Yep.
I graduated in 11. So trapping seasons 8, 9, and 10.
My boys, I got my boys into it in like 14 because I was tired of coming home and they were playing video games. I'm like, all right, we're gonna run a trap line because that gets you off the TV at least for an hour a day. And the market had dropped. I mean, the biggest market for us was skunk essence. So we would get the skunk essence out and then send that to a perfume maker in New York. And we'd get $13-14 for a fox and maybe 20 or 30 for a coyote. But the market was just, although we did get 110 for a fisher one time, which was incredible.
Oh, wow.
That was our best one. But
yeah,
can't imagine.
We didn't have fishers when I was trapping up here back then. We have some around now, and we don't have open season for them either where I'm at. But we have them on camera. Even up in Wayne County, I was talking to some folks about that the other day.
Yep.
Had a bobcat in Clyde. I have a leased piece of property that I hunt on, and that one actually we've had a bobcat on camera up there too. So,
wow.
But again, can't trap those. You got to put them on a pole like we used to do with some of the local neighborhood cats that we would catch in our foothold sets. We'd have to bring a dog pole with us to let go of some of the local neighborhood cats because we were trapping, some ditch beds kind of close to. There's a little hamlet kind of where I grew up.
Yep.
Probably 30 houses, but it's stretched out over kind of a big area. But there's a lot of like little ditches. There's the old like Erie Canal section in there that's no longer part of the canal. I think it's part of the old barge canal or whatever they called it.
Yeah.
That kind of went there in Loch Berlin. If anybody ever drives between Lyons and Clyde, I know both of them are kind of little 1 or 2 stoplight towns. Loch Berlin's, there's a little hamlet right between the pair of them on 31, and that's right down around where I grew up, was right there.
Wow.
But yeah, we had a lot of that was where we trapped. I used to meet one of my high school friends that we ran a lot of the line together, for some of the seasons on and off, more than others at different parts. Depends on, when he was getting a little burnt out with stuff or whatever, because we'd ride our bikes down before we could obviously drive. Yep. And we'd meet, there was one street light down there in Loch Berlin, and we would meet at the street light intersection and then ride our bikes up to my grandmother's farm, cut over the hill, check the traps on the farm on the back side of the hill, walk back over. We'd run that line for about a week, and then we'd do the same thing, meet at the intersection, drive back toward my parents' house, run the other side of the hill in that part of that neighbor's farm that we could trap, and run a little small piece that we had permission to trap down below that was owned by my parents. Yep. And the piece next to that. And that was kind of our line. And we would jump kind of from side to side of the hill kind of throughout season, 1 or 2 weeks on one side, flip the line over 1 or 2 weeks on the other side of the hill. And it kind of trap different groups of them rather than go check the line for a couple days straight and you don't get anything on it. When it started to piddle off, we would switch sides of the hill and, kind of do it that way and kind of change different ditches that we were trapping.
Yeah. Coon, fox, coyote.
Mostly raccoon. Raccoon back then was, for a good coon, we were even getting $25 for them.
Wow.
On the
Yeah.
whole. And that wasn't fleshing them up or putting them up or nothing, and people will laugh. But my bus driver's husband, this is small town stuff. My bus driver's husband was a fur buyer, so we
Yeah.
used to literally skin them, not even flesh them, because he was very particular on how he wanted them put up. We would just skin them, get most of the fat off when he skinned it, put them in Walmart old plastic bags, tie them up in that, and we would bring them. We would put them in an old fridge, keep
Yep.
them cool and not let them set up or freeze. We'd put them in a couple Walmart bags, and we would set them when we got on the bus in the morning. I would set them right there in the front of the bus for her to take to her husband, and then we'd go home at night, and she'd hand us a couple 20s or whatever, and she's like, "Oh yeah, Chris said a pretty good one. That one wasn't so good, so that one was like 15
Yeah.
or 12 or whatever." But we were getting, back then it was nothing for us either. Once we started driving, like senior year 2010, when we were still trapping, it was worth it to stop on the side of the road, pick up a coon, because it was probably 15, $20 worth,
Yeah.
back
Boy,
then. And that would fill your gas tank back then too.
yeah. Yeah.
You
Boy,
know,
we were not getting those prices. And
no.
we would we'd trap and we'd flesh, put them up on stretchers, and then
Mhm.
we would always take them down to Stanley outside of Canandaigua, and
Yep.
and there were some that were questionable, and the guy'd be like, "Well, you guys are young kids. I'll give you market for this and that kind of thing." But and they were, it was coon, fox, possum. They did a bunch of muskrat and some mink as well, and it was, I mean, it was great experience. So, but it's an art that has gone away. It's it just, but it's made all three of us fantastic. It's bettered us as woodsmen, right? Like rifle,
Oh,
you're shooting
100%.
300 yards, bow, you're at 30 yards, trapping, you're at like 3 inches. You got to get
Yeah.
them on that pan, and it's it really, it betters your skills and abilities, I think, as a woodsman. So
No, definitely. I think that's something that me and Nate touch on our show a lot, is the woodsmanship and stuff like that.
yep.
Um, he attributes that to his like hyper fixation and focus. He's a machinist by trade, so that's kind of where his mind always goes with that kind of stuff too. So that's why we, kind of touch on, that's how we both kind of view our woodsmanship, as that attention to detail with stuff like that. And
Yep.
like you said, with trapping, that's huge, because you're not if you're not within that 3-inch circle, you could be 3 inches off again, or you could be 300 yards off of where you need to be putting that set. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, it was definitely something where we didn't have the canines really at that time.
Hmm.
We had some fox, but not the populations that we've had the last probably 10 years. I mean, going back when I was in, high school, that was probably, 15 years ago now going on. But, 10 years ago is really when we started to see the canine populations. We just didn't have it back then.
Yeah.
Like, it was rare to see a fox track or get a fox on camera or any of that stuff, let alone coyotes. Coyotes were few and far
Yeah.
between. Now it's like I almost get, sometimes depending on the time of the year, more of them than deer on camera.
Yeah. Well,
Like when they're
we were
pupping
in
out.
church. We were in Churchville, and just didn't see a lot of coyotes, but we did get quite a few fox, which was nice.
Mhm.
My wife loves to tell the story. So the boys would check their line before school in the morning,
Yep.
and sometimes they'd have time to skin before they had to get on the bus, and so then usually what they would do is they'd salt them, roll them up, put them in the freezer. And my wife went in one time to the freezer to get something out for dinner and just screamed. The boys had left a coon pelt in a bag, and she went to grab it thinking it was meat, and then saw this animal hide in the freezer. She hasn't been the same ever since.
Yeah.
So
Right. No, absolutely. But
so
yeah, that was the nice thing too, and that's why everybody's always asked me when I've talked about it, like, did I do that nice old barn picture with all the hides hanging? We just never put them up ourselves when we were
yeah,
doing it back then, just because we had a local outlet buyer. It was, quite frankly, a lot less work too, and
oh
might
yeah,
we've been getting better price for them if we were doing an extra 30% or whatever he was making on them, it's quite possible. But, we were thinking like we were in like Flint. I mean, that's how we were bought first cars, paid for, school textbooks and stuff like that, pulling, you know,
Man.
30, 40 coon or whatever a year. And once you got into the traps was the big hurdle for us. I remember borrowing the money from my dad or using hay money in combination of from the summer to buy the first, 2 dozen traps or whatever. And then it turned into like, because we did some muskrat too, because we have a lot of ditches out there. And they were thick with muskrats. And muskrats, we were getting $8-10 a piece, and they're freaking easy. I mean, you could go in a ditch and clean out 10, 12 in 2-3 days, no problem.
We were getting
little puddle ditches.
$2 a rat. I mean, it's amazing how much it's dropped. So
yep. And then we had one night, I think it was probably one of the better nights we ever had. We were running about 2 dozen muskrat traps at a time, and we pretty much pick a ditch out, and the farmers were happy as hell with it because they were eroding out the banks on the edge of the fields.
Yep.
So we'd go in there and hit them hard. And the one night, I think we ended up with like 8 or 9 out of the 2 dozen. So almost a 50% catch rate, or maybe we only had 12.5 out, whatever it was. But we had a mink go down through, and he freaking nipped the back shoulders of everyone, gunned them out, flushed them out, took them to the buyer. And he's like, they're no good. They're chewed out in the shoulder blades. And it was every one of them. It's like he went right down the ditch line, found every muskrat, and chewed them right up on the back shoulders and wrecked them. So that was unfortunate. And never did catch the mink. I don't.
Yep.
I was like, well, I'll put, some of the muskrat that we got to, toss out or whatever. And no, he never went back to it.
Wow.
But no, we never got into the canines because the canine market really wasn't that much better than what you're describing back then either.
Yeah.
That just wasn't there. I mean, once in a while, if you got a prime or something, but that's not a common,
it's not.
to get a $60 fox or something.
Yeah. It's got to be like a cross fox or something like that to get. We can get decent with coyote now if we sell them whole, and we sell them to like Civil War reenactors or mountain men, the guys that do the reenactment. Yep. We can get $60 for a dog now, but we just haven't. We're shooting them, and we're just not trapping them anymore. Those. So, were you running dog proof traps for the coon?
No, that was kind of before the dog proof era.
Okay.
Of those really hitting the market, they were out there, and you'd see them maybe in like the little magazines and stuff. The little, because even back then, like Fur Fish and Game had trapping ads in the back, and it was still kind of when trapping was a little bit more acceptable too. So, and that's with a lot of things has gone downhill the last 10-15 years plus. But no, dog proofs weren't really a thing. We've got a few now when we run a few sets here and there at our property.
Yep.
In the fall and stuff like that, right along the laneways close to the main gravel drives is where you can pick up most of your coons. You don't need to go. Back when we were doing it, we were out edges of the farmer fields. It was pieces we weren't hunting anyway, so it was fine with us, and it didn't bother us at all. We weren't messing up any of our deer hunting, and we weren't really thinking in that mindset back then. I was a deer hunter, but I wasn't near involved as I was once I went to college and just got bit really hard by it.
Yep.
So,
where did you go to college?
Finger Lakes Community College there in Canandaigua.
Yep.
Got 2 degrees there, one in natural resources, and then they offered a fisheries and wildlife program the year I graduated. And I said, well, I missed out on that. I got talking down at the bursar's office or one-stop office or whatever it was, and they're like, oh, you can come back for another year. They got enough credit difference, and you come back for a year and you do one overtime a semester, and you could get a second degree in a year. And I'm like, wow, I'll take that. So then I got my fisheries and wildlife that follow-up year.
Yep.
And then worked seasonal with the DEC out of college there for the hogweed program and the forest health stuff. So I did invasive species control for a couple years, and kind of did that out of college for a little bit. Worked for UPS for a while. Then just tried to find the next path to go, and that's when I started doing the consulting and stuff like that. And I was doing pretty well as a deer hunter. Then I was killing some better bucks and, doing some more of the management stuff and everything too. And I was like, oh, maybe I could do this consulting thing, a little bit, because
Yeah.
I had some buddies that were like, what are you doing? How you doing stuff? And that's where, it comes down to what I've always kind of preached is access. That's the biggest thing. Is I always was wondering why we're, say we're going into a spot, it's got a lot of deer and you're blowing a lot of deer out of it. And I'm like, well, all the deer that were here in this bedding area, it was kind of like an aha, kind of moment for me. We're walking kind of through a bedding area. Now we know it's a bedding area to get to this stand because it's on the where it needs to be because of the deer sign, and we're blowing out most of our property to get back to hunt that. And
Yep.
it's like, why are we doing this? Like, all the deer are blowing out, and the only deer we were seeing out of some of those stands when we were hunting like that were coming back to us, you know. And that was just
Yeah.
when we were starting to figure out our property too, when we bought it at that time. So a lot of that was trial and error, and and stuff switched over the years, and now we got food plots knocked in, established trails and stands, and the right
Wow.
places built around topography and access and all that good stuff. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's come a long, long way with that.
For sure. It's it's interesting. My younger son did a couple classes at FLC. He had to have an associate's in order to go to Wanakina, and
Okay, Ranger School up there. Yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah, so he did a few classes, and then he went up there. Um, Loved the classes that he did at FLC, and it's a fantastic program. Another guy I know, Josh Harp, um,
Hmm.
did I think he might have done surveying or something through there, but he loved the program too. So it's if you're looking local, like at a community college, I mean, it's an excellent program. So,
Hmm. Yeah, they
are
have a
you
lot of
good?
they have a lot of or they did when I was there 2+2 offerings. A lot of folks I know did 2 years there, 2 years transferred into a different program for some of the
Yeah.
degree sets and stuff. And not just in conservation. I mean, they have a lot of other programs too. And if you're looking for that first place to make that step where you're thinking about college, it's a good
Yep.
economic choice to, get your feet under you, see if that's the direction you want to go with stuff. And
Yep.
the community aspects changed a little bit there, because it's a little bit more remote now, but I think that might be across the board at colleges. Again, I haven't been in college
Yeah.
since 10 years ago now, but it's I'm sure it's changed quite a bit, even in
Yeah.
that section, because I worked there. That's where my full-time job was, before I switched over to part-time when I uh, joined up with Whitetail Properties. So,
Okay.
but I still work over there part-time as a groundskeeper when I
Oh,
when I
nice.
left the full-time head position. So,
Yeah.
yep.
I did my 4 years in natural resource management at Houghton.
Mhm.
Um, and my daughter Emily actually looked at FLC doing the 2 year 2+2 with ESF. Um, but what it came down to, she didn't want to transfer schools 3 times, and she knew she wanted to go to Wanakina for a year. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah. So let's talk a little bit about consulting. Are you still involved with that? Are you still Old
Yeah.
Tin Cup still?
Yep. Yep. Still do Old Tin Cup. I don't hit it as hard as I used to. I was doing probably my good years. I was doing 25, 30. I've been doing,
Cool.
that for 10. I've been doing that for 10 years now. So I was doing 20, 30 properties a year, which if you're squeezing that into the months of like January through April, pretty much you're out of the house a good chunk of the time. You're working full time at the college on top of that,
Yeah.
it was tough to balance that, um but that was hammering at it pretty good. I'd always take May off for turkey for the most part. There's a couple of years I tried to do turkey and that, and I was just way burnt out, not
Yeah.
sleeping very well, and driving out all over the state. I've worked in probably 25 at least, maybe 30 of the counties here in New York.
Hmm.
Um, Done clients, all throughout the Northeast, Pennsylvania, Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, obviously New York, Connecticut. Never been to Massachusetts, and never Ohio. I kind of always stayed northeast with stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, now it's I'm down to probably I'll go to 10 to 15 depending on the year. I have a lot of I call them like checkup clients. They have me come back in every like 2 years or stuff too. So a lot of I would say probably like 10 or so new ones every year, but I'm probably not doing full on day long consults. It's more driving around and checking on stuff's doing, talking about the deer from last year, stuff like that, looking through trail cam pictures with them, more of just that social catch up time kind of thing, more than a full on consult and plan with it. So
yeah.
And
we're doing we're doing about 6 to 8 maybe a year. And and the thinking is I'm 8 years from retirement, and so we're trying to get things kind of established. And then Charlie and Emily both only work 4 days a week right now. They're both with the state, so it's 4 10s.
Yep.
And so we'll take our Fridays and Saturdays, and we'll do some consults. But so what we're doing is largely we're doing, like, when they're done meeting with us, they'll have a management plan with suggested implementation. 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, and then if they are of the type, and we've had some that are like, we just don't have the bandwidth to do this, then Charlie and I will go in and we'll do the cutting and the trail maintenance, or put in the food plots and that kind of thing. But we're kind of, I'm sort of stepping into it as I'm going to step into retirement, thinking, well, this is something I want to do. So mostly the management plan, and then implementation has been less than it's 1 or 2 a year maybe. So, but it's a great skill. It's a great, being able to interact with people, to have the people skill is probably as important as the knowledge and resource and management and deer management. Like, it's being able to interact with people, help manage that as much as anything else. That's what we're finding anyway.
Yeah, the biggest thing I found with the consulting is you got to, like you said, kind of learn to read the people. Kind of get a feel for what their work ethic's going to be, how ate up with it they are, their equipment limitations. Time is the biggest thing for folks. And then I was finding, and more recently too, I don't do usually as much full programs. Most people want you to go through, ribbon it up, draw it up on Onyx, send them over the pins and the map points, and just give them a basic idea for it.
Yeah, she needs a little whiskey on those gums.
Oh yeah, don't tell my wife that. Okay.
So now you've jumped even more from that into the real estate side of it. Tell us a little bit about Whitetail Properties.
So Whitetail Properties is a national company. Started in 2007 in Illinois. Yeah, I can almost feel teeth coming through there on the bottom, I swear. So national company in Illinois, started in 2007, 2008, back when I was in high school. I might be getting tired, ready for bed. It is getting pretty late. So came to New York about 5 years ago. I came on board with the team just a couple months ago, and to come on board with Tim and Heather Kent with the Finger Lakes sales team. And it's great. We're in 13 counties right now for our territory. Try to cover them all: Wayne, Cayuga, Seneca, Ontario, Yates, Chemung, Schuyler, Tioga, Lewis, Jefferson, and we're covering St. Lawrence at the moment, Oswego, and I think I said Cayuga already, but that's the 13 pretty much that we're in
Wow.
down through that kind of central Finger Lakes region, so to speak, is what we cover, the three of us. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's incredible. So you're spending some time on the road then.
Yeah, but that's what everybody asks. We get asked that a lot is, where's our office? And I said, my office is my truck right now.
Yeah.
So we'll probably, with the projection, being that it just came out a few months back, projection wise on a 12-year, I'll probably put 35,000 miles on that truck a year,
Wow.
going,
Wow.
going all up and through that territory with stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's nice. And I brought her on for, looking at possible potential listings and
Yep.
everything like that. So,
Wow.
that's what you wanted. Yeah,
So did you have to yeah, she's happy now.
yeah,
Did you did you have to like get a real estate license and all that stuff?
yeah. So I was with another company before Whitetails. Um,
Okay.
Whitetails. I met Tim Kent and stuff like that, and we headed off and kind of grooved. And he's like, if you're thinking about maybe doing it, and I said actually I said I've been applying to Whitetails since you guys came to New York. I said when I heard they were coming to New York, I threw my hat in the ring back then because I was just getting into doing the real estate stuff, and I learned a lot with the first company I was with and everything like that, and I was thankful for the time with that. But it's kind of been that dream for Whitetails is kind of
Yeah.
there's something about that name and that shed logo and wanting to be a piece of that family and now that I'm a member of that family, I'm even more thankful and wonder why I didn't push a little bit harder in the beginning, but I think it all happened for a
Yeah.
reason and the way it worked out. So
Yeah.
um
So you're selling property. Do you also do lease? Do you lease property as well?
we don't do any leases through Whitetail Properties. We're a buying selling real estate company that is our main focus is land. I mean, everything that we're listing is land based, rural home with acreage, farm ground, timber ground, recreational hunting grounds. um you name it, we probably listing it, selling it. Archery shops, I know the Western New York teams listed a couple archery shops that have since changed ownership, so maybe they bought a different building, but they were old archery shops. I know Brandon listed
Mhm.
one. um and there's yeah, it's anything land related, even some larger commercial lots. I know that some of the other guys in the state have done out for listings and stuff. So um
Hmm.
but yeah, anything to do with land, and
Wow.
and I think that the way that our marketing package is, the way that we train our agents and the way the company selects the agents, um, it really shows in how much attention we put into the listings with our write-ups on the listings, how many photographs we take of the listings.
Yep.
All that is just it's top notch. The product that we put on the table for folks and the way to showcase their property, and then working with the buyer side of it, being able to pick pieces apart and see if it's really what they're looking for. If they're looking for a really good deer parcel, you read any listing that's got more than 5 acres and it's great deer hunting. Well,
Yeah.
if deer hunting is the main focus, and that's where we can flesh it out and see if it's got the good bones to make those improvements to put it to that level, or
Sure.
if it's just there's some deer here, or I didn't find any deer sign on some stuff I've looked at that are quote great deer hunting.
Yeah.
So
I would think that's where your consulting experience comes in too. I mean, as a if somebody's coming along and wants to buy good deer property and walk some dirt with you, you're going to be able to point some things out with them, and that's huge.
yeah, that side of stuff. But I mean, we sell to folks that are just looking for, some acreage to get out of town, get away from the city. We still work with a lot of buyers from downstate area, as well,
Hmm.
and some people out of like Rochester and Syracuse and stuff like that too that are coming down into that market. A couple folks
Yep.
out of Philadelphia. I've worked with some folks out of Maryland, buyers recently, and it's some folks that are just you know is this is this bad stuff in my woods? Is this good stuff? Is this what we should be looking for? Is this a good price? That and there's still other factors that they weigh in, even if it isn't the deer hunting thing.
Sure.
Some folks I look for, they've never hunted before, but they want to get into hunting.
Yep.
So, they don't know anything about a lot of that. And most of them are coming from non-hunting backgrounds that want to get into hunting,
Yeah.
with that. So we've seen a lot of push from those, the people that are more urban areas that are coming into the rural areas to hunt and recreate and be more locavore or whatever the term is for it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, he's getting too
Well,
wiggly up there.
yeah, I wish we just, when we bought our property, we kind of just stumbled into it with a realtor, and he goes, well, I've got some property available. And we walked it and had some good deer sign on it. This was
Yep.
7 years ago, but I would have, I think now if I were to advise somebody, I would say, check out somebody like, you know, Whitetail Properties, or connect with Ben, so that you're getting somebody who's going to really be able to look at the property with you and say, yeah, this is, you're going to have marketable timber here eventually, or the deer are moving here, or this thing is full of invasives. You're going to have to do a lot of work to get this up and running.
And a lot of those best hunting parcels, are the diamond and the rough pieces, I call them, that just have the right access and a lot of the
Yep.
right features that can be enhanced. Because the access thing is almost one of the only things on a piece of property that you can't control.
Right.
That's going to be what it's going to be with it. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's the biggest thing that I find for folks that want a good deer piece is you got to have good access, whether that's good trail system established through it for access, or road frontage, or the right topography to access it the right way. Because you can build the rest of the stuff. You can build bedding, you can build food.
Yep.
You can't build access very easily or cost effectively in most cases.
Yeah.
So, and that's where, like you said, working with somebody that's and willing to listen too. We might, like the other day, we were looking at some pieces with some folks, and the piece they ended up putting the offer in on wasn't even one they were going to look at that day. It was just
Mm-hmm.
throughout the day and the conversation we were having. I was like, okay, they like this about this piece, didn't like that about that piece, and kind of going back and forth in my head. And I was like, well, I got one that's about 20 minutes from this last listing that we had looked at. And I'm like, you guys okay with checking out another one? I mean, we're down here. They were
Yeah.
up from Long Island area, and we were looking at some pieces. And I'm like, I think you guys, you might like this one. And we just had the offer came in and was accepted on it the other day. So
Wow.
it was, and that's part of it too, is, it's like, okay, well, and that's why I tell folks, even if we're looking at one that day, let's look at something else. Even if it's not one of our listings, if I can find another company's listing, that way you can
Yep.
compare, what you like and don't like about it, because you can find something you don't like about a piece a lot of times, or something that is just like a definite deal breaker on a piece, and you might not even know it is until you get there and look at it.
Yeah.
And that's where picking them apart, and that's why I tell folks, you just be honest with me. What'd you like? What'd you not like about it? Because that helps me help you. That even if the 1, 2, or I looked at as many as 5 with a person in one day,
Phew.
and that was pick him up at the hotel that he was staying at like 8 o'clock, and I didn't get back to drop him off at the hotel at 8 o'clock. I didn't get home till about 9:45.
Wow.
So, that day was running, gangbusters, but didn't end up finding one that day. For whatever reason, we didn't find one that checked some boxes. So he's planning another trip up. He's a buyer from Maryland, and
Mm-hmm.
he loves upstate New York and the areas that we're looking in. So, but one of them, I take that back. One of them that we looked at the first time, he wants to look back at again in the next trip.
Yeah.
Because that was kind of the one that checked the most boxes of any of them. So he wants to compare that to the next batch of ones. And that's where, again, working with the right person that can say, okay, I think you like this stuff, so let's add this one to the list, or maybe we'll spread the search out a little bit and maybe dip into the edge of this county over here if you're okay with looking in that area.
Sure.
Sometimes it changes. Sometimes folks want to look in specific school districts. For example, if they've got a family with kids, if they're looking home with acreage, a lot of them are school district dependent, with a
Yeah.
lot of it. Or they have school districts that they definitely don't want, but they'll be up in, a central area of a county or one side of a county where they got decent schools, but they're like, I don't want this school district. So we can look
Yep.
specifically, for different things like that. Staying out of areas that might have a little bit higher tax burden because of different townships too is something we
Yep.
hear from folks as well. So yeah, and that's all stuff that we ask those kind of questions to folks. What's your main goal of the property? Is it a deer piece, or is it just a place to get out away from people? And good deer property would be a benefit. Do you want to have big trees? Do you want to have more open fields? Do you want to all this stuff is usually not highlighted by other real estate companies either.
No, absolutely not. That
So,
I would think that that's not probably even on their radar. If you just go with a basic realtor. So
no, it's not, and it's not, but it's not what they do every day. This
right,
is what
right.
we do every day. We work with land parcels every day. So,
Yeah.
The housing stuff like that too. We're versed in that, and we can do the housing side of it with the rural homes with acreage. But
Mhm.
it's like I said, that's why I think a lot of it just doesn't get marketed that way, because it's not typically who they are. Sometimes they're outdoorsmen or women, and they do hunt and stuff like that, but they're not looking at the land for the ratio of maple trees versus oak trees, or maple versus beech, up here in the Lake Plain area around the
Yeah, yeah.
Lake Ontario and stuff like that where I grew up. That's huge. I mean, you get up into here in some of our areas, or southern tier too for that matter, and get into a fully canopied woods, and it's all beech and beech thicket,
Yeah.
which if you want wide open hardwoods, having a high beech component is not a good thing to have right now, because of beech
Nope.
bark and everything else sweeping through it. You end up
Yep.
with thickets, which works for some deer cover, and there's some food value there, not much, but
Yep.
if you want wide open, beautiful park woods, I'd say go to the Adirondack Park, because in most
But
cases
also
you're not going to find that.
right, and also know if you're up there, you're probably not gonna see a high deer density if that's what you're after.
There's some spots you get into where you're still into it in Oswego County and the edges of Jefferson, up along that
Yeah,
lake
yeah.
plain. We do have some
Yep.
good densities there, but if you once you get over tipping into Lewis County and stuff, and into
Yep.
that side of northern Herkimer, that area,
Yep.
the deer numbers, the deer density definitely drops.
Yeah.
There's
We
no doubt.
hunted Governor area quite a bit,
Yeah,
public, did a
yep.
lot of tracking up
Northern
there.
Jefferson there, yep.
Boy, we'd see a lot of doe. The buck ratio was, we'd go days and never see a buck. So
Yeah, that's one
uh,
thing that I was always perplexed. I worked on a dairy a couple summers, coming out of high school up at Cousins Dairy in Adams, and
mhm.
I was just perplexed on, like you said, the doe to buck ratio is just, I don't know why it's so skewed. But even the guys I talked to up there that deer hunted and had some cameras that I ended up meeting in college, and knew I was talking to them about their deer hunting, because we were in the conservation program. Most of us hunted, and it was just it was one of those things where the my phone's broken. I don't know
It's
where it is
probably
right
your wife wanting
now.
to say goodnight to Nora.
That could very well be what it is. But anyway, the yeah, it is. Phone fell over here. Oh, probably exactly what it is. It's 10 o'clock. He's probably thinking that Nora's in bed, or both. Yeah, it was my wife.
Yeah.
I'll give her a text. She probably forgot I was doing this tonight anyway. But she's
That's
got a lot of stuff going on with the students. But
yeah. And I won't
yeah.
keep you much longer.
No. I'm good with that. She's a good baby now that she's getting a little heavy eyed. That's probably why she's calming down a bit.
Yeah. Look at that yawn.
Oh yeah, big yawn. The eyes are getting heavy. I saw that when I looked at her, and yeah.
Yeah.
But no, the northern deer ratio, I'd never kind of understood that up there. And even they said that they were getting way more does to bucks on, their cameras even,
Yeah. I
which
wonder if it's because traditionally for so many years it was we don't shoot doe. It was bucks only.
I
I
think a
mean
lot
that.
of that, I think it's a lot of like that because they don't even run a lot of nuisance permits for does you know, in that
Yeah.
area of like Adams, that area, Jefferson County, Henderson Harbor area. Like there's a fair amount of ag component there along that
Yeah.
section of the lake. And my cousins farm a lot of that. And they said that they don't do much, nuisance control hunting or, extended doe harvests. Some of the folks that they have work for them hunt, but it's not like they're saying, we got to go out there and shoot a half dozen does or whatever off of this parcel or whatever this year.
Yeah. Hmm.
And maybe it's just the doe social stress pushes the bucks out of areas too. That's entirely
Yeah.
possible. And they hole up in little pockets.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's tough to say without being up there. I mean, Jefferson for me
Yeah.
is about 2 hours or so to Adams from where I am right now, and that's
Yeah.
shooting the throughway right up to 81. A little bit longer. Sometimes I'll go for that nostalgia. I'll go up like Route 3 and up that kind of way to it.
Yep. There
But
used to
yeah.
be a Gulf gas station in Mexico that we used to stop at when I was
Mhm.
years and years ago. The Gulf of Mexico. It's not
Yep.
there anymore, and
Yep.
we don't go up 3 anymore either. So
Yep.
the so a couple other quick things. The 100 proof seed mix.
Yep.
Is that a blend that you have put together that you're selling now, or
Yeah.
tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about that?
That's a Brassica blend. It has an annual clover in it as well. So I can't
Okay.
say it's a straight Brassica radish blend.
Yep.
So that's and anybody that buys it gets the seed label with it. I got nothing to hide. I'd be flattered if you decided to recreate the mix or if you make it a little bit, tweak it or make it better. That just got to be going to the store, not finding exactly what I'm looking for, or reading the seed label and not liking what was in the bag. And
Yep.
so I started buying bulk from a farmer that was using cover crop seed. And then it turned into, hey, let me hook you up with my contact at Speedway. And then that turned into buying 20-pound bags of this, 20-pound bags of that. And now I'm buying, 50s to make up for the amount of demand that I got. And so it's got a purple top turnip, 2 hybrid Brassica varieties of Vivint, and a jackpot turnip is the other one that are in it. Those are more of like a forage cross with good bulb production if you have adequate days, but they have good leafy production early on. Purple top's a good staple.
Yep.
I don't run like a Brassica filler of like dwarf Essex rape in it. I could probably, I guess, cheapen the mix, but I would rather have the right plants and the right tonnage for that.
Yeah.
That's why I don't have that. I used to have a forage rape in there, but the Vivint and the jackpot fill that gap a lot better, I found, when I was playing
Yep.
around with that blend to begin with. And then another 30% component of the mix. So the 3 Brassica species make up about 30%, and then the radish makes up about 30-ish%, and then the crimson clover makes up the last about third, maybe
Wow.
slightly more than a third.
Yeah.
So that's
And
how I kind of divided it.
that crimson comes up mostly springtime, right? Like that's an early green up, isn't it?
Yeah, that's an early green up clover if you don't get a frost out on it. If you have heavy cold winters, you can lose some to frost. You'll see it just spotty in your fields, and you'll find out where the cold pockets are in your field.
Yep.
Or you find out where you didn't mix up the seed very well, either in your seed spreader.
Yeah.
But
Is there do you still have the mix available, or have you sold out?
I'm down to my last 4 acres with what I
Okay.
scaled to this year. So this year I did about 44 acres of seed. So
Wow.
4 acres short of selling out on 44 acres worth.
Okay. And
Yeah.
where can people like we've run our we do some corn for cover
Yep.
just for like a screening and run it at about 12 inches between the rows, maybe 18, and then we put
Mhm.
brassica in the between, and I think that mix would be excellent for that. Where do people typically where can they find you to buy that?
So I advertise on Facebook Marketplace and then with the podcast, and the rest is word of mouth. Most of the folks now
Okay.
aren't coming in on Facebook either. They're coming in from, my buddy says I need to try your mix, and
Yep.
the other thing that I do a little different. I'm a bad businessman in this standpoint, but working better at it. And let me grab a bink for her quick.
Okay.
2 seconds. There, we got your deer instead. That'll work. Oh, yeah, you can chew on him. So, bad businessman that I am, because this is my third year selling seed. A lot of folks are coming back to me about what to plant, and I was telling them I'd go cereal grains because I don't recommend going more than like 2 years with a brassica crop in a field.
Yep. Yep.
We ran into that when I was doing the blend testing and stuff. I was just pounding brassicas to the fields every year. I ended up with some white spot fungus is what I believed. I diagnosed it to. We had some really wet springs. We had some fields that didn't maybe get the seeds terminated out of it in the spring either, and they bolted and then reseeded in too thick.
Yep.
Ended up with a lot of rain. Ended up with some fungal issues in our fields, and then you can't really get it out that easy other than rotate out brassicas. So that's why, like this year, I sound like a bad salesman, but I didn't plant any of my seed mix this year because stuff's got to go into cereal grains or corn or clover for a few years, kind of make sure that fungus isn't as prevalent in the soil before we go trying to plant brassicas back in again.
Yeah.
So, and same thing with folks. I told them if you're on year 2, I wouldn't recommend throwing in some of the folks that have been with me since I started selling, some seed blended up. And the seed blends has changed the last 2 years. It's been the same. I guess I was even selling 4 years ago, but very small quantities. It was whatever kind of I had left over I was throwing together. And then I was like, well, actually, this mix is nice. I'll sell the extra. And then I bought some different stuff, did that. But then that's when I got the forage rape out of it, went to the different
Yeah.
hybrid varietals and stuff the last 2 years. And I think I got the mix just about where I want it. With kind of the species that are in it and kind of how the percentages break down, it works out really good and complements it. And the biggest thing I tell folks is you don't want it to look like a carpet with brassicas. You kind of want some open pockets to let those plants get up and not compete out with each other.
Yep. It's so easy to overseed that stuff.
Brassica is super easy. I tell folks I would barely open up that gate as little as physically possible. And then with that gate opened up as little as physically possible, go over everything one way. And then you should have some left in the seed gate and go back anywhere in between or any weird oblong shape, stay out of that section and stay in the big open sections of a field if it's a weird funky shape or whatever. The other thing with the 100 proof mix I do is if you let me know with, a couple of days of lead time, if you got a plot that's 3/4 of an acre, I'll make you up a measured to 3/4 of an acre container of it or 6/10 or whatever your plot size is. But I'm maybe, like I said, maybe I'm a bad businessman, too honest of a salesman, but I'm like, if it's under a 1/4 acre, I wouldn't put turnips to it. It'll get browsed out. You won't have anything. I would go cereal grain clovers or something like that that's going to take the pressure. Or if it's a situation where they're like, I want something back in the woods that I can just throw and grow. I'm like, this isn't your mix.
No,
I don't want the product to fail, and I don't want people to pay me money for a product that's not going to work in their situation either. Typically when they ask me like, how much it is for, an X number of acres, or somebody like I know might be like, yeah, I need like 3 acres worth. And I'm like, I don't think you got 3 acres of open ground on your property to be planting food plots, period. And they're like,
Yeah,
well, I think it's kind of that. I said, well, with Onyx, put your tracker on,
exactly.
walk around the field, measure it out. And they're like, I need like only like 1/4 acre and then like one that's like 4/10 of an acre. I was like, yeah, with 3 acres, you would have way overseeded it. You would have had no production. You'd had some greens, but they would have probably been yellow and sickly. It would
Yep.
not have worked out for you in that situation.
Yeah.
So that's what I tell folks. They're like, they're like, nobody else does this. And I'm like, well, I can put her in the garage with me. I put some tunes on. We sit out there. We measure out some seed. I have a seed scale that I put the containers that I use, and I do like a reduce, reuse, recycle kind of idea. You pay for
Hmm.
$5 up front with the first purchase, and then like a guy came to me today at the show, brought 4 containers back to me, and he's like, I need another 1/4 acre, touching some bare spots, and one area got a little puddle flooded out. He's like, so I only need like a 1/4 acre container to fill in some gaps. And so he brought me back 4 containers. And so I said, okay, Dave, that'll be $5. I said, you're just paying for the one container that you're taking now. And with your deposit coming back for your containers you brought back, that's only $5. He's like,
Right. Right.
not $5. I was like, it is because you brought my containers back. I don't have to go buy these containers next year and,
Yeah.
and go through all that, that problems with it. But the new thing this year is in relation to the 100 proof is we've talked about it for a little bit, but we've come out with Nate's been calling it the spring mix. It's a clover chicory blend.
Okay.
That seed just got delivered. That just got delivered 2 days ago.
Yep.
So, yep.
What is it? Is it a mix of clover, or is it just a single a single brand of or breed of clover?
It's 5 different clover species and a chicory.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it's a non-bolting forage leafy chicory. It's not like the chicory you see growing up in your field.
Yeah.
It's a specifically a forage chicory.
Yep.
With that too, just a couple of kind of touch points on it. It's got a good perennial mix, but it's got a biennial of Balanza clover and an annual of crimson component to it as well.
Yeah.
And then I guess
Any
the medium red would be the Bearcat is what it's called, but the medium red is like a biennial, triennial clover too.
Yeah. Have you played with Berseem at all?
Berseem was actually sold out. That was supposed to go into the blend and probably be in next year's spring mix.
Yeah.
But I couldn't get my hands on that before November when they're harvesting that. So
Yep.
or end of October, so they wouldn't get it till November. So and I wanted to have some spring mix for folks to have for fall plots this year to go in with cereal grain for a nurse crop that have come out of a year of brassica plantings or two that have kind of got those plots established and and then have that frost feeding option for folks too.
Cool.
So
yeah, I've been reading some neat stuff with developments of Berseem in the northern climates, and
that frosty Berseem and stuff like that. Some of the varietals of it.
Yep.
Yeah. I love the Balanza for its nitrogen fixation for building back.
Yep.
It works really well for that. And then once it terminates out to seed, frees up that nitrogen in the soil from the nodules too.
Yep.
And that's kind of a misconception from folks a lot of times is they're like, well, the nitrogen in my brassica mix is helping my brassicas right now. I said, no, it's not. It's just taking it out of the air and storing it in the ground. I said, when you kill it, when you spray it, it'll release that nitrogen and maybe do some light tillage and manipulate that soil. You can release that nitrogen in the soil better, but it doesn't get released for the most part until plants start dying,
Right.
and then the nitrogen becomes available to the other plants.
Yeah, it's largely a captivator.
Yep.
So, it's interesting. Last thing on brassicas, it took a while for our deer to figure out, hey, this is good stuff.
Yep.
It was probably 2 to 3 years before they started digging up bulbs.
The bulb side of it, we were getting ready to just about give up on them. Honestly, they would get into the leafy greens and stuff like that. We did more the way we introduced it better to them or had better results was we strip planted it a lot to start.
Okay.
And that's because we were kind of giving up on it because we weren't getting, like you said, the results with it. And then if we have light winters, they're not hammering into the bulbs too much, or like this past winter, they were still on clover and cereal grains because they didn't die off.
Yep.
We just
Same.
stayed too temperate this past winter.
Yep. Same with us. So, all right, last one, and then I'll let Nora go to bed. So you host the 100 proof wild white or 100 proof whitetail podcast, and am I right in saying you've hosted that in like a local liquor store at times?
Yeah, we've done a couple of tastings there at a local liquor store. We've done some some tastings or whatever there.
Yep. So it's mostly bourbon tasting, right?
Yeah, we've done a rum or two as well. Oh, you're getting tired.
Yeah.
Let me set you down over here on the bed. That's all she wanted to do. She was just getting tired. She was too tired to sit up, right? So,
so you do some bourbon. You do bourbon tasting and rum tasting with the podcast.
Yep, mostly bourbon and whiskey and stuff like that. We've done a few scotches here and there, like I said, a rum occasionally. But yeah, it kind of started out with we had a different name at first, and when we first started doing the shows, and it was mostly just because I used to do the live Q&As with the consulting and stuff like that. It was always kind of something I did, and then my buddy Nate started doing the shows with me, and then were like, well, we come up with a name for it. Came up with our original name. Did I think like 10 episodes, 9 or 10. And apparently we were gaining some good traction with it. Started dropping some hoodies and doing some stuff with that first one. And then we got served a cease and desist letter.
No way.
So then we had to change names, and that's why we had to go into the 100 proof name.
Yeah.
And I kind of like the flow of it better. We kept the same logo because the logo was something my sister actually drew. That logo, she drew my Old Tin Cup logo. And they're kind of very similar. The Old Tin Cup one's the wildlife pouring out of the cup. And then like the 100 proof one is like the deer jumping out of the glass kind of idea.
Yeah.
So, and that name just kind of, it flowed better. It wasn't, the other one was a combination of like, whitetails and, whiskey and stuff like that. So we just went with the 100 proof because then we could talk about a rum or, different scotches or other stuff that might not be in the traditional. I mean, we've drank, vodka cranberries on the show before, and, vodka sevens and stuff like that too. So, especially when it was hot in the summertime, sometimes you don't want a little change of pace from that darker stuff. And, we've done gin. Actually, we've done a couple of gins on some of the podcast episodes. But yeah, the live tastings, we're going to bring back those here and there. It's tougher now with the little ones. Most of us got little ones. Nate's got a little one that's going to be 2 here coming up. And then Nora's obviously going to be 6 months here next week. So we don't do as much of that side, but we still get together and you might see us have like a beer on the show or something like that while we're shooting it. But,
Sure.
um, maybe we'll have a drink if we're celebrating, like after that chicken barbecue we had or something. But
Yep.
it's, it's not as much like the go out and taste at the store kind of thing anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If, so it, if you had three, like you had three bourbons, the last three bourbons that you could have in the world,
Mhm.
what would they be? Your top shelf.
So anything kind of on the table with it. Well, I would want to pick something that's got a good proof, and basically everything I'm going to suggest is something you can go buy at the store. I don't want to
Yep.
have guys do a bottle that they might overpay for, or something like that, or chase and never find, or something
Yep.
like that. So, I'm going to kind of go with kind of my staple that I think everybody that's got a bar, a little home bar, or something like that, I think should have on their shelf is I would recommend definitely a Wild Turkey Rare Breed. Um,
Hmm.
that's a phenomenal one. Um, Great one to just start getting introduced to neat or somewhat on the rocks. You can do really well with a Wild Turkey Rare Breed for that. And it's some people might say it's a little bit hot, but it's about 115 proof.
Hmm.
Um, which is up there for some folks. Um, and then the other kind of way I'm going to go with this is I'm going to pick a couple different families. That way you can kind of figure out what way you want to go with
Yeah.
your bourbon journey. I would probably recommend an Evan Williams bottled in bond. It's $20
Ooh.
bottle. Drinks way above its weight class for a bottle. It's a great mixer. If you're
Mm.
mixing up any like whiskey and cokes, whiskey and sprites, anything like that, it works really well with that. And see if you like that Heaven Hill kind of family. So you got Wild Turkey, you got Heaven Hill, two big name distilleries, and then the last one I'm going to go with is Knob Creek, and
Oh yeah.
I'm going to go Knob Creek, and I'm going to twist it a little bit because you can find these everywhere, and it gets you a little bit more into that specialty category. I'm going to go and suggest folks find a Knob Creek single barrel, and more so like a Knob Creek single barrel store pick.
Okay.
So these are going to be a little bit, they're not as pricey. I mean, it's probably going to be the most pricey of the batch. Um, going to be 120 proof, but I would say a couple drops of water, drop it down with some ice if it's too hot for you. But there's just so much complexity, and then that's into that Jim Beam family. So if you
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that Jim Beam family, you could try to see what you like out of these different ones. They're going to start to get different flavors, see what you like. And those are three that you could go to a store just about anywhere and you can find a knob pick. Those are consistently kind of in our best whiskeys of the year that we have is usually a
Hmm.
knob pick. And then Rare Breed's always a good contender. And then something that you can have that's a cheap mixer. Doesn't matter if, a buddy comes over and you polish off any of those bottles, but especially that Evan Williams for, I think it's like $20 a handle or 25 a handle.
Wow.
It's
Wow.
very economical. It's the Evan
Yeah.
Williams white label, a lot of people call it. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, that's kind of my cheap mixer, if you will, for
Yeah.
that three pick. So
Have you ventured into Blanton's at all?
I do have. Actually, they're not here anymore. I got a new cabinet that I found at a roadside find the other day after looking at a piece of property. That's got my Buffalo Trace harder to find stuff in or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a couple Blantons over there. But more in that Buffalo Trace family, I like the Taylor stuff more than the Blanton stuff.
Mhm.
The E.H. Taylor is just more my jam. Um, Blanton's just come off. I don't want to sound bad about it, but kind of bland.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And
There's some I've
it's
had some good ones, but I've had more okay ones than great ones.
yeah. Yeah. I get my dad a bottle of bourbon every year for Christmas, and we try them. And I would never probably spend that money that on myself, but because it's a Christmas gift, I'll drop some, and it doesn't matter how high end I get, he still ends up coming back to um, the Devil's Cut is kind of his. He really likes that, and I'm trying to think. there's another oddball one that he really liked, and it may be you had mentioned earlier the Old Forester, and I think that's another one that he really likes. I'll spend $150 on a bottle, and he'll prefer the $30 or $40 bottle over that. But it's fun to try them. So, yep,
Yeah, I would definitely say if you're looking at spending that, that little bit extra, you can get a really nice Old Forester or a Penelope Toasted,
yep,
not Thortnick.
yep,
All good options.
yeah. All right. Well, Ben, this has been it's been fun. I know Nora probably hasn't loved it, but that's okay. We loved having her on the podcast with you, and um, this is is this her first podcast ever? Um,
Yeah, first ever for her being on this side of the camera.
yeah. Well, in
She's
another
super.
year or so, she'll be talking, and then you'll then you won't know what to do after that. She'll be moving and talking. So,
Yeah, she's been a trooper tonight, but
yep,
especially with it
yep,
being a little bit past her bedtime tonight.
yeah, absolutely. All right, brother. Well, I will. I'm going to let you guys go, and I'd love to connect sometime and even talk more about the food plot stuff. I think I there's a lot in your consulting brain that I would love to pick more of.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. Anytime, be happy to. Be happy
Yeah,
to.
we never touched on any of the NDA stuff. That's probably okay. We can catch that the next time around. So
Yeah,
good luck.
absolutely.
Good luck on your show this weekend.
Thank you. Thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate it. And yeah, I know this will probably drop after the show ends. So,
yeah,
but yeah, just check us out, whitetailproperties.com. Feel free to reach out to me or, whatever agents in your territory. And that's the nice thing about this company that you don't get with a traditional real estate company either is we're not competing.
yep,
We're all family. We all work together. Um, the listing goes to the agent of territory, and that keeps everybody honest. Nobody's playing favorites. Nobody's taking all the cream off the top of the pie before the pie comes out of the oven.
yeah.
That kind of stuff. So,
So
and
where can folks find that Whitetail Properties? Do they have a website here?
yep, whitetailproperties.com. We have over 4 million unique viewers every year on
Okay. And so you personally, can they find you online somewhere? Old Tin Cup, is your Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah, so Instagram, uh, Facebook, Old 10 Cups, Habitat Rest. Yeah.
All right. I'll put the link in the bio or in the
Okay.
on the post, and we'll be all good. So thanks again, Ben and
Yeah, thanks
Nora.
for having me, Mike. I'm sorry. Now that she's gonna.
No, no worries, man. It's all
Okay.
good. Faith, family, and stewardship, man.
All right.